Being thankful is often connected to the holiday season. We go around the table thanking people for cooking the food or giving us gifts, but one area of gratitude that we often overlook is being grateful and appreciating ourselves. So, today in the Thanksgiving spirit, we're going to talk about how to develop self love and build a greater sense of thankfulness for ourselves. I remember one time traveling in the New York City public transit, and I was underground going to the subway. And I remember seeing this person picking up garbage one time. That was their job. They were cleaning up the subway system. And I decided to try to go out of my way and thank them for what they were doing. And this is super not common, especially in New York, everyone running around, hustling and bustling. But something told me on that day I wanted to try to go out of my way and do that. And the look on that person's face when I was able to express gratitude, I was able to show appreciation for what they were doing, the look on their face was so powerful and so palpable that I saw they had just such a sense of pride in what they were doing. And that in turn made me feel really good that I could spark that positive emotion in someone else. It was a really powerful moment that showed me the power that gratitude can have on other people. And so too, it makes me think the power that gratitude can have on us. As we show appreciation for ourselves, we can spark those same positive emotions, that same level of pride, that same positive self-image boost as spreading gratitude to other people. So our first question is, why should we even be talking about this? Maybe self-love is just an ego trip and it's us trying to make ourselves feel better and say we deserve self-love when we don't. You can imagine the looks on people's faces if we were sitting at a Thanksgiving table, everyone going around the table saying what they're grateful for, and then someone just sits and says, I'm grateful for myself. But the truth is, self-love is a paramount piece of our lives. And without a real and deep sense of appreciation for ourselves, we'll always be stuck in some sort of pattern of avoidance. And this avoidance looks like us constantly trying to distance ourselves from our emotions and our emotional experience. This can look like constantly needing to distract ourselves, either with social media, alcoholism, being a workaholic, or really anything that we would do to avoid being with ourselves. Some coping mechanisms would definitely be healthier than others and certainly more accepted by society, but it doesn't change the emotional mechanism that's happening behind the scenes, in that we're ultimately looking to avoid contact with ourselves. And when we don't develop a real sense of self-appreciation, self-gratitude, self-love, however you want to say it, we end up being left feeling empty. And we chase these distractions to no end because they never really leave us feeling fulfilled. So how do we go about building this self-appreciation? A good first step is to change the way your internal dialogue works by speaking to yourself as if you were a good friend. Or in the words of Jordan Peterson, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Now, this doesn't mean to be fake with yourselves and tell yourself everything is good and that you're blameless. In fact, it's just the opposite. You have to start being real with yourself. Because all too often, we're overly critical of ourselves because we as people naturally have a negativity bias and either ignore the good and focus on the bad, or we make the bad things way worse than they actually are. So the next time you start telling yourself a mental story about why you're the worst person in the world, why you're unlovable, why you're X, Y, and Z, and the worst at everything, pretend you just heard a good friend say that. And think to yourself, what would I say to him in this moment? Would I validate that? Would I say, yeah, you are the worst person? Or would I approach it with maybe a little bit more nuance, maybe a little bit more realism, and actually approach it more constructively in a real way? It's important to recognize that the patterns of self-talk that we often use in our own heads, we would never speak like that to anyone else, especially someone who we actually care about. So then we're left with the question of why would we speak like that to ourselves? And the truth is, we shouldn't. We should talk to ourselves as if we're any other person who we'd want to help, who we'd actually care about, because hopefully we do care about ourselves, or at least we want to care about ourselves. And if there's a negative thing that you did, or a pattern of behavior that you're looking to change, or you're looking to address something less than positive in yourself, don't be overly critical and just needlessly berate yourself, saying you're the worst person ever, I hate you, whatever you would say to yourself. Approach it from a real lens and approach it constructively. The bottom line is, if you wouldn't speak to a good friend in that way, don't speak to yourself in that way because you also matter. In addition to being mindful of your internal dialogue, you should be purposeful with your physical self-care. Everyone should have self-care, self-development habits like going to the gym or regular meditation or reading or journaling. And when you do these practices, be purposeful with reminding yourself that you're doing these practices because you care about yourself. You wouldn't be doing them otherwise, and you're doing it because you care about yourself, or at least you want to care about yourself. The more we hear something, the more we actually start to believe it. This is why mantras from our parents or teachers often stick in our head and can shape our worldview from a very young age. But in line with this idea, the more we tell ourselves that we're doing something because we care about ourselves, the more we may actually start to believe it. This can be especially valuable on lower motivation days where we're stuck in bed, we really just don't feel like getting up, but we tell ourselves, no, I'm going to do this thing because I care about myself. On these kinds of days, it's really important to remind ourselves of why we do the activity in the first place. Because through this process, we start to associate discipline and an internal sense of motivation with self-love and self-respect. And this leads us to the next step in developing our self-love and self-appreciation is directly focusing on improving our self-respect. A great way to do this is to hold yourself accountable and responsible to staying true to your own word. The same way you wouldn't respect somebody who is unreliable or a liar, you won't respect yourself the more you don't stay true to your own word. When you make a commitment to do something, to meet up with a friend, or to do a task, or to do a good habit the next day, hold yourself to that and make sure that you are staying true to your word. Because the more that you're able to stay true to your word, the more you'll trust yourself, the more you'll respect yourself, and ultimately, the more you'll be able to be grateful for yourself. Because as these habits go over time and you continue to do good things and you continue to be proud of yourself for doing these good things, you'll appreciate yourself more and have a greater sense of self-love, self-appreciation, self-thankfulness, however you want to put it. And the last piece for developing more self-love and having a greater sense of self-appreciation is spreading appreciation outwards to other people. When we regularly thank other people and express gratitude outwards, it lifts our own mood and it primes our mind to think in a more grateful way. So how you'd go about doing this is you'd recognize people in your life who help you in some way or make your life better in some way, whether that's the garbage man collecting the garbage in the morning, your girlfriend, your parent, your whoever it is, and make sure that you're conscious of what they're doing for you and you thank them for that thing. And doing this will prime our brains to function in a more grateful state naturally. And over time, we're going to be able to recognize and point out things that we're doing for ourselves, such as going to the gym, meditating, any sort of good habit, any good character trait, and we can appreciate what we do because we're already primed to be in a more grateful state. Over time, becoming grateful for yourself is a really big piece of self-love and self-appreciation. When you've been going to the gym for a while and you're able to look in the mirror and you're able to appreciate what you've been able to do, whether you're trying to lose weight or gain muscle or you're trying to promote positive change in your life, the more you're able to stay consistent to this, the more that you'll be able to appreciate yourself along the way. It'll serve as an internal source of motivation and overall just really lift up how you feel positively about yourself. Self-love and self-appreciation are fundamental pieces to having good mental health. Without a positive sense of self, we often fall into the pitfalls of a negative self-image and having anxious or depressive moods. If you're looking to continue developing your mental health and exploring how to cultivate the best self-image possible, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment on how developing self-gratitude has looked in your life or what gratitude practices you've implemented, and remember to hit life on all cylinders.